okay, fine. Where do you stand on these Hindu Vata pop? Where there's songs, telling Muslims to leave India and they should go to Pakistan and things like that. That was covered a couple of weeks ago.
They
Where do you
they are
stand on that
bad.
sort of songs?
Okay, they are bad. They should be trashed. They should be made fun of, but they should not be banned.
You know what you remind me of. You support Hindutva, okay, but then you say like you think like yeah, Muslims are being wrong, and these Hindutva members who have these views about Muslims, you don't support them, and yes, you agree that
Like
Muslims are being
I
ostracized.
never
But
said Muslims are wrong. I never said Muslims are wrong.
oh, really? They're not wronged in India, Muslims?
Wronged. I'm not saying Muslims are wronged. Like in general, Muslims are not
No,
wronged.
no,
Some
not
Muslims are
wrong.
wronged.
Wronged,
Okay,
as
GED.
in like
Yes.
yeah,
So some
yeah,
Muslims
okay.
are wronged definitely, but like not all Muslims are wronged.
And you like when you say you don't endorse like some Hindutva members that they have like bigoted views against Muslims, you don't support that, okay? But
Yes.
which is all good, but you're still supporting Hindutva. To me, it seems like part like in the West, like in the United States, like members of alt-right groups who say like, oh, we don't like I don't hate black people. I mean, this is like we just think they should like live in a separate area or they like but like okay, but a lot of but your entire organization or institution and ideology is against them. We're like, those are just some of our members. I am part of this organization, but I don't endorse that ideology. I don't support their certain views. But I think like they give us they give the audience an impression that oh, this is just some bad actors within that group, but it's actually mainly most of the ideology of that group, right? Like you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like you
Uh,
it seems like you're whitewashing what Hindutva is representing.
but how am I whitewashing what Hindutva represents by saying that they are wrong?
Well, okay, no, because you're not saying Hindutva as a whole is wrong. You're saying there are certain members within Hindutva who are
Yeah.
wrong, but this is not Hindutva ideology itself. And I'm just saying this is not just certain members of Hindutva. This just seems
Mm.
to be like a theme of the entire Hindutva movement to be bigoted against Muslims or to want to make non-Hindu people in India to feel like second-class citizens and to challenge India's secularism. You know what I mean? Like this seems to be a
Yes.
main theme of that entire ideology, and you're saying you're not for that. Might
Yes.
give the audience a misunderstanding of like, oh, maybe it's not all like this. Well, it's mostly like this. So
No, I don't think it's mostly like this.
okay, well that seems like that's what the impression that we get from Hindutva right now. So you are going against every single report, every single expert analysis that I've read. Like this is maybe you are white. It seems like you're whitewashing Hindutva.
Like the reports you have read, I don't think there is like any survey or something which is like telling what all the Hindutva people are about. It is mostly based on like news reports and everything, right?
Um, most what?
Like it is mostly based on news reports, like this incident happened here, this incident happened there,
You're
and
honest telling me like most Hindutva members don't have a
yes,
bigoted view against Muslims.
yes,
That's a big claim. I don't believe that.
like you
Um,
might like try to like if you come to India, like if you like say Hindutva, then like what do you mean by Hindutva members? Like I would like to know.
People who, if I ask them, are you a supporter of Hindutva, would say yes.
Okay, so even the people in India who don't vote for BJP, if you ask them, do you support Hindutva? They will say yes.
And what does that mean?
Because most of the people
Supporter.
don't know the difference between Hinduism and Hindutva.
The people who say yes and they understand the difference between Hinduism and Hindutva.
Like even amongst them, I don't think like more than 40, 30 or 40% of them will
Okay.
be like the most upper limit would be like around 30%.
India as a whole is one of the most bigoted countries in the world. So for me, like even the general public, who are not even actively Hindutva members, are probably bigoted against a certain group, right? So but
Like
Hindutva itself, like I mean, but what the studies show is like bigotry in India is like rampant, right? But then, like we know Hindutva specifically is even like active members of Hindutva are even more bigoted than the other people in India. So for you to say like, oh, if we zoom in on Hindutva, we're not going to get extreme amounts of bigotry against Muslims in India, that's a very extraordinary claim here. Do you know what I mean? Like this is goes
Okay.
flies in the face of everything every report and every analysis that we've seen.
Okay, so like when you say that most of the people, like I don't buy into the claim that most of India is bigoted. I don't.
I didn't
Quite
say
didn't.
no. I didn't say.
Yes,
I
I
didn't
quite
say
didn't
most
get
of
what
it.
you said.
I didn't say most of India is bigoted. I said India is one of the most bigoted countries in the world.
Like, what does that mean?
That means like if you look at studies that measures bigotry around the world, India ranks close to number one.
Okay, so I think my teacher talked about that study once. That study takes into account like the colonies, how like how many in a colony, what is the like diversity in that colony, right? Like in a
Um,
locality, like in a like in an area, what is the like diversity of people in that area, right?
let me check. What you talk about that study? I will go find the other studies.
Okay, so if I don't know which study Armin is talking about, but there was one study which took into account this thing, that what is like the diversity in a particular area, like an area which is taken at random, and they took many areas. But the problem if you take things like this in India is because people like to live with their community. Like as far as people I know from the villages, they live in villages where their caste is dominant. If they get money to build a house, and they have like 4 or 5 plots, which in village like if you're
So
if you're a
the
village man,
question was regarding accepting people of different ethnicities as your neighbor. How willing are you,
yes,
basically?
that
Yeah.
they would not be willing, but that's not got to do with like discrimination towards Muslim or any other community.
Not
That is
No, I didn't say discrimination. I said bigotry.
yes, if that's the definition of bigotry, then like I don't buy into that definition of bigotry. But if that is the definition of bigotry, which I don't support, then of course you will find that India is bigoted. But that definition is bogus, I think, because in India people like to live with same caste people. Like if you are living in a village and you have like 3 or 4 plots, which is like very common
Wanting
for
to wanting to live with same caste people is bigotry. Like the fact that you don't want to live with other
uh,
people of a different caste is
no,
bigotry.
but that's not the case if the people of the same caste come together to support the people of their caste, and that has been the case like for years, like thousands of years, which I oppose.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Wait.
support
So
people helping only the people from their caste, but like that is how it is, and that I don't think
I
that's
know,
bigotry,
but that
that's
is
casteism.
bigotry. I know.
That's
I know, but
casteism.
that's yeah. Well, casteism is a form of bigotry.
No, but like there is casteism bigotry like going to the levels of untouchability, and there is this level. I don't think this level qualifies as bigotry in the Western sense.
No, okay, okay, so the thing is that it does, right? But like the level of bigotry is so normalized in India that people look at it and say like, well, that's not that big of a deal.
Like
Like because
most of
there's
the people. Okay, so
because people in India are used to levels of bigotry where certain people are considered untouchable. That's how extreme levels of bigotry they're used to. So if
not
somebody
now.
says like, well, I mean, no, they're still like I understand that there
Like
has been
it
a lot
has,
made, but
yes, lot of
let me
improvement.
lot of improvement. I agree with that. But I'm just saying that's what with that context, if you say, well, I don't want this caste to be my neighbor, that seems mild. But by Western standards, that's actually an extreme level of bigotry. Like if, for example, if somebody in the United States says like, oh, I don't want any black people as my neighbor, we consider that extreme level of bigotry. But by India's standard, it's like, oh, we have 4 castes, and that certain people of certain castes can only wash toilets and touch dead bodies, and like, and so this is like me telling me it's other like people that I don't want this member of caste to be my neighbor. Sounds pretty mild compared to what we had. So people are like, oh, that's nothing, but that's huge still by modern standards, by
That's
civilized
huge.
society standards. That's huge.
Okay, so this is not got like this specific thing has not got nothing to do with like the forecast. It has got to do with like the thousands of castes that are around. So if you are like a Bhumihar or a Kayast, you will try to live with Kayastas, like which is like a subcaste. You can find it out of after the stream. Like you know that there are many
Yeah,
castes, right?
it's yeah, I know, but this is like, this is like, I don't know. You're
Yes,
like, oh, we're white, but we don't like all white people. Like we should
yes,
be. I
but
want to live next to Germanic people, like because I don't like
yes,
those Spanish people. Like you're like, okay, well, there's so many ethnicities within ethnicities,
but
right?
it has got
So
nothing to do with liking or not liking.
it has nothing to do with liking or not like. Yeah,
Yes,
it's just
it
being
has got to
comfortable.
do.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's more.
comfortable with their peers.
That is bigotry. Like for example, like uh, people who are white and racist, that doesn't mean they like every white people. If they're racist, that means they're just more comfortable around other white people. That is bigotry. It's
Yeah,
not necessarily that if you're a racist white person, it doesn't mean that you love every single other white person. It also applies there as well. So it's the same thing. It's bigotry.
like I don't think I will be able to fit it in the context of the US, but in India, like if even if you are living with the people of the same caste and you prefer someone from the same caste being your neighbor, even then, if you meet like someone from the other caste, I mean most of the people would like treat them very 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 nicely, like really
Exactly. Okay,
nicely.
let me show you. Let me tell you how that sounds. Okay. For example, let's say white racists in the United States, they might be like, if I see a black person in the street, I would treat them very nicely as long as they don't live in our neighborhood. Like
Yes.
YouTube, that's not my view. This is not my views. I'm just describing other people's racist views. Okay. But again, the fact that they're going to treat a black person nicely if they meet them, you're not going to be like, oh, therefore this person is not racist. You were like, oh my god, this person is racist. Like they shouldn't live in a neighborhood, separate but equal. Like, that whole separate but equal thing. That sounds like you right now, right? Separate but equal is an example of extreme racism. Like, oh, we will like them, we will treat them well as long as they stay away from our neighborhood. This is like a very common saying among
Yes, I
racist
agree.
people. Yeah, okay.
So, but like, what will happen if like in America they will jump like break down that number 80% whites and 20% blacks, make it something around 1% white, 1% like Irish, 1% Spanish, 1% like 2-3% of everything. You get that? Like 2% Indians, like everything.
What's your question? I don't understand what you're saying.
Like there are 80% whites and 20% blacks in America right now, right?
Oh,
Something
80%.
around that
I don't.
number. Like
Yeah.
just
What?
let's just take that as an
Okay,
example.
that's it. Let's get. Assume that's right. Okay.
Okay, so instead of that, there is just imagine that there is like 2% blacks, 2% whites, and like so many percentages of different types of people, like 2% Spanish, 2% Irish, and like all kinds of people are mixed in there. Okay,
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and like before
it's kind of.
Enlightenment values,
Mm-hmm.
they were like helping out each other according to their communities, and most probably the castes are linked to the tribes. So I think it might be like like ancient thing, like very ancient. And from that time they
Yeah.
were helping each other out. I'm not providing excuses for casteism. I'm totally against that system.
I
I'm
understand you're explaining where it comes from, but I'm
Yes,
saying,
I'm explaining where it comes from.
yeah,
Like,
but
and
I
they used
agree
to
with
help each
that.
other, and now
I
they are
agree with
locked.
that. But
Yes,
bigotry also has an ancient history. Racism
yes,
also has ancient
I
history.
agree.
So
Like I'm
yeah, yeah.
telling you what
But
this case is like, and
yeah, I
then
agree. I agree.
these people help out each other, and then suddenly like the Enlightenment values come. Like Indians have been fighting caste even before the Enlightenment values for some people, but like Enlightenment values come and they are now adapting to new values, which is
Yeah.
like Indian plus
So we.
Enlightenment values according to India. And now they are like slowly getting out of this thing where they help only their community members, but still like the people there want to live with their community because the communities help each other like more.
Yep.
They help
Again,
each
this
other
is not
more.
a defense. Yeah, this is kind of like saying, well, we white people want to live next to each other
No,
because
but
white people help each other more. It's kind of
no,
like
but
that. And
no, but
yeah,
you like use that example with black people,
yeah. Well, again, black people also be racist against white people. That's true.
but like not as bigoted as that white example, right?
Well, I mean, when you're a minority, when you're a majority, your bigotry is more felt because you're the
Yes.
dominant group.
Well, like if you come to caste,
I
like all
mean, I'm
castes
just
are
saying if
minority.
yeah, okay. So I agree that if you're small groups, the effects of your bigotry is felt much less because you can't exert that level of influence. But that's the nature of you being a minority, not because you're not bigoted. The bigotry is still there. The effects might be smaller because you're not the majority.
I think we disagree on the definition of bigotry. I think I might
Okay,
have to look it up.
but for example, like if you think about it, like in World War II, right? It wasn't the racism that existed there wasn't white people. It was the Germanic. Like they were
Hmm.
like the Nazis. They didn't just kill. They mostly killed other white people. You know what I mean?
Yes, like they killed
And they were
Romanis too,
racist.
right?
Yeah, and they were racist against other white groups as well. Not just they weren't just
But
racist against like Jewish
but
people and black people. They were racist against they were like the Germanic races, their superior race. and they were against the French, they were against the Spanish, they were against all other sort of white races as well. So you can
Yes,
see,
but
like, you can see, even if it's a even if it's a subgroup, it could still lead into very extreme. If that level of bigotry gets handle access to power, it will still have the same result. You know what I mean? Just because you don't have the opportunity to be extremely damaging with your bigotry, that doesn't mean the bigotry itself is not as intense.
but like these people have been in power, and like this bigotry is not like that they want to kill other
India,
people or something like that. This bigotry,
I
like
mean,
if even if it is bigotry, it is something like it is coming from
yeah,
a feeling of
yeah. When
helping and
you're
getting
right,
help.
no, yeah, you're right. When they were in power, they weren't killing them. They were just literally telling them that you are you're only worthy of touching, cleaning our shit, and burning dead
uh,
bodies, and
that's
so I
wrong.
mean, slavery. Well, no, that is not like they were slaves,
uh,
especially.
uh,
Yeah.
no, that claim is right, that move is wrong.
What?
That like what you're saying is right, but people doing that is wrong.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So
I'm
but
no, I'm just saying,
this,
like, right now, I'm just saying, when you have an extreme level of bigotry, okay, you're saying, oh, they wouldn't want to kill them. I'm just saying that, or they wouldn't want to treat them like that. I'm just saying, well, because they can't. If that level of bigotry has access to power, that's how it would manifest itself.
but this bigotry is not like the untouchable bigotry. This
It's based on the
bigotry
caste
is
system.
uh,
The untouchable bigotry is the caste system. This is the caste system. If the caste
this,
system
yes, this is the caste
is
system, but
allowed to, yeah, if the caste system was reinforced to the fullest extent, it will result in literally slavery.
uh, like is there slavery in like the caste system?
Yes,
Like the
the
lower castes are
Shudras,
supposed to not be paid?
the Shudra, well, paid, define paid, because as much, because paid as in, because the Shudras were slaves.
Like they
Like
were paid for their work, right?
they were given the minimum requirements that they needed to survive. So were the slaves in North America.
No, but the Shudras, like I'm not in support of this system. Anyone, please don't come after me. But
No,
like,
like the history of the Shudras were that they were slaves. They were basically literally not part of the Aryan race. They were outside of the Aryan race. That's why they were the Shudras. They were supposed to obey. They were the working. They weren't just the working class, as in the working class that we recognize today, that were happy with their job. They couldn't quit. Okay, here's the thing: they were the working class. Okay, they had to do the farms, and they had to do manual labor and
mm,
clean, and do the cleaning and everything. And
mm,
they were not allowed to not do that. That's the definition of a slave.
uh,
Like, if you were a
like
Shudra and be like, I do not want to work the farm anymore, thank you very much, I'm gonna go do something else, you are not allowed to
yes,
do that. That's the definition of a slave.
like isn't the definition of a slave that you will do something what I tell you and you will not get paid?
Yeah, well, the definition of a slave is that you cannot quit your job.
Uh, I thought it is like you don't get paid, but
But okay,
uh,
but you don't get paid. What depends on what you mean by paid, because technically all slaves get paid to some extent because they are given food and shelter at some point. Okay, what do you mean by paid?
like
It's
monetary
not the
things like money.
no, no, no. Yeah, okay. So it's not the paying part. So for example, if I had a slave and she was hungry and I gave her some money to go get herself some food, that would not make her not a slave. The fact that she can't stop being my worker, that would make her my slave. The choice part is the slavery part. You understand?
But
Like,
like
if I, like, oh my, like, the moment that I give her money to go get something to eat because she's starving, that would not, the moment I put money in her hand, that's not when she becomes from a slave to an employee. That's not what stops make her pay. Like, for example, the Filipinos that go to the UAE or to Saudi Arabia, all right, and their passports are taken away from them so that they can't leave. They are slaves, even though they're getting paid money. The fact,
but
as the moment that their passport is taken away from them and they have no mobility and freedom to quit, that's the moment that they become slaves, even if they get monetary compensation.
okay, but how about you apply this in the system where like everybody is bound to their job and they have no masters? Like even like the Shudras have like had like
Can
many jobs, like
can they can
golds,
yeah?
blacksmiths, like zinc workers and tanning people, and they used to like
Were they
charge a fee for what they did, like making up like a slipper. In
okay?
India we call it
So
chappal
this
and
okay.
things
So
like that. They
this
get to,
depends on what period of time you're looking at, right?
yes,
So this is a very long history, okay?
yes, very very
So
long history.
the longer back you go, the more
Yes.
well, actually, there's a period where you get into Shudras literally being slaves, okay? But then this keeps evolving, and then you have more elements of choice. Still inferior, but still more elements of choice. It gets introduced to the system. It really depends on when you look at what period of time you look at it. This is a very by the way, what we're talking about is a debate between scholars. This is not like completely settled.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's why like that's I think that's why I haven't heard of it, like because this claim of the Shudras being slaves, I think
Well,
it
look
was
it up.
more even if it like even if scholars are arguing for it, like I think they might be arguing for like the bottom of the like the untouchables or something.
Shudras.
But getting to that
Um,
bigotry part, I don't think that I think it is bad, but I don't think it is like the bigotry which people like. If you call it bigotry, then people have a very specific view of bigotry, which is like actively discriminating against people, committing atrocities on them. The like if India is bigoted by your definition, then it is not this bigotry which people think bigotry is. It is like a bigotry of help. Like yes, that's I think that's the right word. A bigotry of help. Like I will help my community member first.
yeah. So basically, what I'm saying is that it really does depend. It's a mix on the time and on the definition of slavery and the time that you're looking at. So the question of whether Shudras were slaves, it's debatable. If you'd like to send me your questions for me to answer during our Q&As, become a patron. If you would like to have a discussion with me live on air at the end of the Q&As, become a YouTube member. Link to both is in the description. Thank you for your support.